Hello, and welcome to Pearlie's Design Shop. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I made a fabric bowl. And using that same method, I'll make two more out of coffee filters and tea bags. I was inspired by and learned how to make these from Kristen Peterson at Altered States Studio and Lindsay Dixon Creative of It's a Lovely Day 4. And I will link them both below. I had so much fun making these. I made several. They're not all bowls. Some of them are different shapes and sizes. And I'll show you some images at the end of this video. So I hope you enjoy watching. And if you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. So let me just start by saying this is a great project to use up fabric scraps, which I did have some, but in this case I didn't think I had enough, and I wanted to stick to kind of a color scheme here. So I'm just cutting up and tearing some extra pieces to use. If you have a ton of scraps and you're happy to use what you have, like I said, this is a great way to use those up. So this is the bowl I'm going to use, and I've already covered it in plastic wrap and just tucked that on the inside of the bowl. I'm using Elmer's glue, and I've got a brush dedicated to glue. I even wrote on it, so because I don't know if I'm going to be able to use it for anything else. And I'm just going to apply a layer of glue over that plastic. And then I'm going to start placing the scraps over top of the glue and then using some more glue to press those down and cover them with another layer of glue. I'm going to continue doing this around the entire bowl. Now, this is the first layer of fabric that I'm going to apply. This will be seen from the inside of the bowl. So if your fabric pieces have a right side, you'll want to put that right side down when you are applying them to the bowl because they'll be seen from the inside. Once I have that bowl covered with one layer of fabric scraps, I then put another layer over top, and this layer will be seen on the outside of the bowl, so keep that in mind in your application. And I continue doing that around the entire bowl again, making sure that there is wet glue underneath and again over top of each piece of fabric. So I'm just adding some loose threads now, just for interest, tacking those down with a bit of glue. And I am going to put that bowl down on a piece of plastic to dry. There were a few pieces that weren't laying flat, so I'm just pressing those down with my brush and a little bit of glue to smooth those out. And then once that's dry, I'm just going to show you some photos of the finished bowl. Unfortunately, I didn't record removing that from the plastic and the bowl itself, but I'm going to do another example of making a fabric bowl coming up here shortly, and I'll show that to you then. And this is the bowl after I stitched on a piece of yarn. Because I did the stitching after the bowl was dry, it was a little bit hard on the fingers, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's make another one. My bowl is covered with plastic wrap. You can use whatever size or shape bowl you want to use, plastic, glass, whatever. I am again using Elmer's glue, but this time I'm going to make this one from coffee filters and tea bags. So I'm just going to tear up the coffee filters into smaller pieces. Smaller pieces work much better for gluing onto that, rounded surface. And the tea bags I won't tear. I apply glue to the plastic covered bowl and start applying those pieces of coffee filter. They're going to be my first layer, so that's what's going to be seen from the inside of the bowl. So as you're applying the pieces, sometimes the glue that you've applied to that plastic dries out. So just make sure that you have a good wet layer of glue underneath as well as over top of each piece. Now that I've got that first layer of the coffee filters applied, I'm going to add some glue and start adding the outside layer. I am going to start with a piece of coffee filter, but just on the bottom, and glue that down. And then I'll start adding the tea bags all around the outside, and this will be the final layer, the second and final layer, and it will be seen on the outside of the bowl. I'm just applying those last tea bags, making sure the bowl has a complete cover and they're all overlapping. And then I'm going to let that bowl dry. And once it's dry, I decide it just needs a little something, so I'm going to add some coffee stained cheesecloth to it. So I'm just adding a very light coat of glue, and I'm going to lay that cheesecloth over top and apply just a little bit more glue on top to hold that down. It won't take much. Okay, so I've put the cheesecloth on, and I'm just applying some glue to hold it down. And then once I've added that glue, I'm going to set this aside to dry. And while that's drying, I'm going to show you how I make another one with tea bags and a plastic cup. This time I'm using a plastic cup covered in plastic wrap, and I've just put an elastic band around there to give me an idea of how far up the cup I want to apply the tea bags. It also helps to keep the plastic in place over the plastic cup because it can be a little bit slippery. So I'll just tear up some tea bags, and I'm also going to use some coffee stained cheesecloth again in this make. So again, I'm just adding a layer of glue over that plastic wrap, and then I'll start applying the pieces of tea bag. I do put a piece of coffee filter on the bottom again, and then the same method as with the other two. I just glue that down and continue with the tea bags, overlapping them, gluing them down until the cup is completely covered. That makes the first layer. And then I add the second layer, which you can do right away. Make sure that there's some nice wet glue. Add that second layer, which is going to be your outside layer. Once I have all of the tea bags glued down, I add another layer of glue and start putting the cheesecloth on. So I'm just finishing up, and I'm making sure that I'm gluing the very top of the cup, that cheesecloth that goes beyond the tea bags. I'm just giving it a little bit of glue to stiffen it up. Okay, so now it's dry. I did let it dry overnight. All of these makes I did let dry overnight. And I'm just going to take that plastic out of the inside, and I'll just slide that right off of the cup. It comes off very easily. And then remove that plastic and the elastic band. And then we'll have a look at this tea bag and cheesecloth vessel looks like. So the cheesecloth right at the top, that's kind of hanging over the top of the tea bags, it's stiff. It's because I added some glue to it. Now, if you don't like that, you could trim that off, make it nice and even, but I like that kind of rough edge to it. This is the second bowl we made with the coffee filters, tea bags, and then the layer of cheesecloth over the top. And I'm just going to try and remove that from the glass bowl. I just try by, putting my thumb in around the edge and kind of trying to pry it away. For some reason, it is not giving. I don't know why. So I end up, after trying for a while, I end up getting a little pokey tool and pressing it down the sides of the bowl gently, because I don't want to ruin the bowl, but I just go around and around until it finally gives way a bit and I'm able to pull that off of the bowl. And there we are, the inside, which was all coffee filters, and then the outside of the bowl I had covered with tea bag and cheesecloth. I like it. I think it looks pretty good. I hadn't put any glue on the overhang of the cheesecloth on this one, so you can see it's still pretty it's just like cheesecloth. It hasn't stiffened up at all. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'm just going to leave you with some images of some of the other bowls and vessels that I made.